All right, so I think we'll get started. We have an hour for this session. Some introductions. My name is Richard Tanabe. I'm the NADP site liaison. I've been with the Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene for almost 3 years now. Had a short break, but I'm back. My experience, I've been a MDN operator, I've been an AMON operator, I've been a site supervisor for NTN. So I have been kind of in your shoes. My experience is, as well as being an operator, I have been a technical support person for the Canadian Air and Precipitation Monitoring Network for over close to 20 years. And that is a network in Canada that is similar to the NTN network that we run. So also with us today is Amy Mager, who's our sample and data processing manager. And Mark Olson, who's the program office and HAL manager. And Dana Grabowski, who's one of our assistant data managers, and she handles a lot of the precipitation data review.
Hey, Dana, nice to see your face.
So we'll get started. This is something new for us at the state lab. This was done previously down at Illinois, but for us, this is new. And kind of the thought process was, with the pandemic and with everyone being more familiar with, remote conferencing with Zoom and Microsoft Teams and WebEx, that more people would be interested and comfortable participating in something like this. So here we are. The first one is basically site support. I'm going to go through the acronyms, because that's what we are, acronyms. Background, networks, site support, equipment, shipping, field forms, site surveys, and then we'll look at future topics, potential, and some Q&A, time for Q&A from you guys. This was our calendar photo from last year, taken by Adam Time at the Florida 11 site. If you have photos at your sites that you would like in the calendar, by all means, take a picture and submit it to us. Keep in mind, it is a calendar, so if you take your photos in landscape, that is the best option. So acronyms, there's a lot in NADP, starting with National Atmospheric Deposition Program. Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene, the PO is the program office, the CAL, the HAL, and then the various networks. So depending on what network you run at your site, you'll be familiar with them. A little bit about NADP is the program itself is a cooperative effort. So there's federal, state, tribal, local government agencies, universities, private companies, non-governmental agencies, Canadian government is involved. So there's a lot of people that make the NADP a success that it is. It started in 1978. In 2018, the program office and the CAL moved from Illinois to Wisconsin. And in 2019, the HAL moved from Eurofins, Frontier Global Sciences, which was located in Washington State, to Wisconsin. So a bit of background on organization. We are the program office at Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene. We run the Central Analytical Laboratory, the CAL, the Mercury Analytical Laboratory, the HAL, and the Network Equipment Depot. we take our direction, NADP at Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene. We are basically, we run the network operations. So we coordinate network operations, but the committees that make up NADP and govern it are the ones that kind of guide the program. So there's the network operations subcommittee, the education and outreach subcommittee, and then there's the quality assurance advisory group. Not mentioned here are, there's 4 science committees as well. And these two and the QUAG, DMAG kind of advise the executive committee on changes to the programs, to the networks. So the recent bag sampling transition in NTN, that would have gone through both the network operations subcommittee and the quality assurance advisory group before it was approved by the executive committee. At the site level, for site operators, you're either running an AMON, an NTN, or an MDN site, or all 3, or a combination of some of those. You may be the operating agency, or you may work for an operating agency. So an operating agency may be a university, something like that, or a state government. And then the funding agency is what pays for the analysis of your samples that are collected at your sites. Funding agencies typically are more, so like USGS, EPA, Wood, Park Service, entities like that. And I have a couple of boxes here for funding agencies because oftentimes at sites, your MDN may be funded by one agency, your AMON and NTN may be funded by a separate agency. So oftentimes what happens at your site will depend on who your operating agency and or funding agency are. And oftentimes these two will be the same. So just some background on the networks. Just quickly, NTN provides long-term record of acids, nutrients, and base cations in precipitation across the US and in parts of Canada. 258 sites currently. It's been around since 1978. MDN, Mercury Deposition Network, provides data on geographic distributions and trends of mercury in precipitation. Currently 81 sites, around since 1996. AMNET is the Atmospheric Mercury Network. It reports atmospheric mercury concentrations for determination of mercury dry deposition. And currently there's around 13 sites and it's been in existence since 2009. And AMON, the Ammonia Monitoring Network, reports atmospheric ammonia concentrations to determine ammonia dry deposition. And currently 116 sites, and it's been around since 2010. So
there you
go. Site support.
Yeah.
So this is the meat and potatoes of for us is for today's topic is what can we do for you? First of all, we have a 1-800 toll-free number. It's good in the US, Canada, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. And if you're at a site and you're having equipment problems, call the number if you have cell coverage at your site. That's the quickest method to get replacement parts shipped out to you for the following week. We have network emails for all of the networks, NTN, MDN, AMON, AMNET, and then NADP. If you have more general broad questions, you can, that aren't really network or equipment related, send it to NADP and somebody will respond. If you collect your precip data and it's by PDA or flash drive or Android, this is your email address you should be emailing that data to, and that will allow it to be published on the website in a quick manner.
So,
You just,
what?
what? I just accomplished.
We have a website listed there. We are in the process of redoing our website. A lot of it will kind of stay the same to start, but the biggest thing will be, it'll be, with all the different devices these days, it will be more responsive to your phone or tablet, whatever you're using. On the bottom of my email in the signature is how are we doing? It's a link to a survey. It's an anonymous survey. There's like, I think 4 or 5 questions, just, how are we doing? If you're not happy with something, fill it out. If you're happy with something, fill it out. We would like any feedback we can get, how to improve our service. So the biggest thing for us, biggest challenge is keeping track of who our operators are. We know you write on your field forms every week that your name and your initials, but oftentimes we haven't, we aren't aware of these changes in a timely manner. So that's where you can help us. If you're reassigned, if you're moving on, if you're going to retire and you're training a new operator, let us know, because provide us with a name and a phone number and email, and we'll do the rest. Current operator information is important. Allows us to follow up on any questions for samples, missing samples, any questions about the field form, or if it's equipment related. So sometimes we're being a bit more proactive, and we're trying to identify issues with equipment, and we'll reach out to the operator and try and get more information to help us resolve issues. For NTN operators, with every sample you submit, you receive a sample receipt report. And basically it's basically once your field form information is entered, you get a printout PDF of what was on there. And it just helps, if you do get it and you aren't quite sure what to do with it, it's mainly to, double check that we got the information right when we entered it. It's something we don't have for AMON and MDN, and perhaps down the road we will. So when we send out messages like this training session, it goes out to our Google Groups mailing listserv. And if we don't have your information, then, you're going to fall through the cracks, and, we won't be able to provide you with these opportunities. As well, we track the start dates for operators, and we do recognition awards on a yearly basis for 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20, 25 and up. So any questions before we move on to some of the equipment stuff? Feel free to jump in. Otherwise, we'll keep moving. You can also use the chat function and ask any questions there. And I have one that says, could you ask everyone to mute their mic? I think I've been kind of doing it as we go along. Okay, so equipment. If you call the 1-800 number, the first thing I'm going to ask you is what type of collector you have. We have a record of it, but the easiest way for me to do it is to ask you. And oftentimes, depending if you're new, you won't know the name of it. And so I will ask descriptively, does it have 2 buckets? Does it have 1 bucket? So is it all white? Usually those are the types of questions I ask. But yeah, so it's good to become familiar with what equipment you have at your site. For aerochems or for MDN, there's 3 different models. For NTN, there's 2 different models. These aerochems have been around for 40 plus years, and it's been a struggle to keep them maintained, the motor boxes and the sensors, but we're working away at it, and we actually have a really good student now who is kind of filling that role for us, and that's been pretty exciting. NCONs are, there's a dual chimney and there's a single chimney for MDN for Mercury, and then there's the bucket for NTN. Rain gauges. A lot of questions come into the 1-800 number, and it's, I can't download my data. There's no response. And again, first question I'm going to ask is, what kind of rain gauge do you have? Probably 50% of the people have an op pluvio 2 or 2L, and that would be my gray milk can style, or is it an ETI NOAA 4, which is a tall white cylinder? So those are the majority of the rain gauges. There are some op pluvios, we call it the classic, still at a few sites. And then I'm going to ask you how you download your data. Is it with the old PDA? Is it with an Android? Is it with a flash drive? And I meant to put pictures up of those 2, but I didn't. And then if you're using a PDA, the old PDA with the stylus, and we would encourage you to reach out to us, and we can talk about upgrading to an Android. Essentially, it's an Android phone, no SIM card. The data logger manufacturer has its own app that will run on an Android, and it will allow you to communicate with the gauge by Bluetooth and download the data directly. There are some differences between the PDA and the Android, but PDAs are 2007 was when they first started going out, so they're well past their prime. But so if you still use a PDA, consider upgrading, and we can talk about it. The Pirani Bluetooth adapters, that's another question I'll ask if I have you open up this or open the door. Do you have a Pirani, which is a newer style, or do you still have the socket, which is the older style? Again, we're upgrading to the newer Piranis. So, equipment support. So what do we provide for you at the sites if your equipment's not working? If it's a collector, we're gonna send you a replacement motor box, replacement sensors. We provide lid pad seals, dry side buckets. For rain gauges, we're going to provide you with a 12-volt battery if we determine your battery is not working. Bluetooth adapters. We still have some PDA batteries if you're set on the PDA. The SC115 flash drives, they do fail over time, so we will replace that. And collection chambers, so in the ETIs, depending on whether these have to be winterized, and if they aren't winterized in time or properly, they will freeze, and the base of the collection chamber will pop, and it will cause leakage in the rain gauge, which could lead to further damage. So again, we're gonna, through our data review on the precip, we're gonna pick up false precip, or you'll see it on your, when you download the data. And those are the kind of things we can help you troubleshoot. Depending on the gauge itself, oftentimes those will either go out of spec or get damaged, and we do have loaner rain gauges that we can provide, and while you get yours repaired. A lot of the time it is based on, you know, what your capacity is to replace and how comfortable you are. So, you know, collection chambers, a well-worn lid pad seal, and 12-volt batteries. So those are the main things that the NED, the Network Equipment Depot, will provide to sites. So if you have problems at your site with your equipment, call the 1-800 number and we'll help you out. Shipping. So for Amon, the CAL provides the return UPS shipping labels. So it's in every box, and you're shipping those back to the CAL every 2 weeks. If you receive a box and the label is not in there, call the 1-800 number. We'll get you an electronic one that you can, you know, print off and tape to the box, or we'll, depending on when you discover this, we can add another one to the next box. So again, but reach out to us, we can help you. NTN sites are responsible for samples, shipping the samples back. So that's every week if it's a wet sample, and the bucket lids. So every 7 weeks, you're going to be shipping those back in the poly mailers that we provided. So you make that switch to bag sampling, you'll no longer be shipping the big, large boxes of buckets. For MDN, the site is responsible for shipping the coolers with the sample and glassware back every week, regardless of it, whether it's a wet or dry week, you'll ship it back. A note on MDN is, you know, we have a set number of MDN coolers for each site in rotation. And when we get one back, we turn it around and ship it back to you with new glassware and a new bottle. So try not to let those coolers stack up for a couple of weeks. Otherwise you will run short. If you're a co-located NTN MDN site, you can ship your 1 liter NTN bottle back in the cooler. So in the middle hole in the cooler, we'll fit the bottle and just add the bottle in the bag, and then the field form with in the cooler as well. So, and we do have some sites that are now sending their lids from the NTN buckets bag sampling back as well. So keep that in mind. Field forms. So more acronyms. The FORF is the Field Observer Report Form. The MOF is the Mercury Observer Form, and the FF is the Field Form. So just some common things that you should keep aware of is site IDs, barcode labels are used for NTN and MDN. Examples of those are kind of down here. NTN are white, MDN are blue. So avoid, if you have a co-located site and you have a backup operator, just make sure you remind them that, you know, white is for NTN, blue is for MDN. Those should go on every sample, and they should be, there's one for the bottle and there's one for the field form, and it's listed below. For NTN, if you have a dry week, it'll go on the dry week envelope. If you run multiple sites, so there's some sites where one operator does 3 sites, or one operator would do intercomparison site, it's very important to make sure you keep those, that you don't get those mixed up when you're shipping those into the lab. Block 4, I believe, is site operations, and block 5 is sample conditions. Always complete those. Try not to leave any blank boxes. It will, slow us down for data review and stuff like that. In the remarks, if you have equipment malfunction related issues, again, can't stress this enough, call the 1-800 number as opposed to writing it on the field form. Because it takes, by the time you ship your sample and it comes in, it will take, it could be 2 weeks before we kind of find out that, oh, your motor box isn't working. So again, same goes for if you're short on sampling supplies, then call the 1-800 number and we can expedite supplies to be there for the following Tuesday. For field forms, often the question I get is how long do I keep the pink copies on site? We request that you keep the last 2 years. I had an operator recently say she had she was new and going through the files on the site, they had the pink copies dating back to 1987. So we don't need that many years. So NTN forms, if you haven't switched to bag sampling yet, everyone has received their supplies that should have received their supplies. So if you haven't switched yet, we encourage you to please do so as soon as possible, just to help us manage how we're gonna, handle this moving forward. The 1 liter bottles, if you have more than the 1 liter bottle, fill the bottle and then you can discard the remainder. Please do not put the field forms inside the bags with the NTN bottle. If the bottle leaks, it does damage the form. If you have a dry week, we provide envelopes specifically for that. You have to provide the postage. Another option is to scan the form or take a photo and then email it, and it can be emailed to the address on the form. So ntn@slh.wis.edu. And sample receipt report. So I mentioned before, everything in here gets generated to a PDF form report, and it's just points out any issues with your sample. And as well, you should check, that we got the dates, the times right, stuff like that. We'll talk about supplies at the end. And I think next is the bucket sample weight. With the switch to bag sampling, we have had some questions and a bit of confusion. So just go over this quickly. We covered this in the bag transition Q&A last week, I believe. But essentially, where you used to write the weight that was written on the bucket in the past, you're now going to weigh the bucket, the sample bag, the strap, and the plug, and that's going to be your weight now for Cal bucket. When you bring the sample back, you're going to weigh everything, which is basically the sample, the bucket, the bag, strap, and the plug, and put that into the bucket plus lid plus the sample. And then you're going to subtract the weight off of whatever the weight on the lid that you brought back the sample with. And that will give you your sample weight. So again, if you need clarification, reach out to me and we can go through this one-on-one. I'm more than happy to do that with you. MDN, so the MOF, again, fill out everything completely. Always use your oldest supplies first. We do have a rotation of boxes that are labeled from A to D, E, and F in some cases. That that box ID is found on the inside flap of the box. So you just circle whatever letter it is. Sample bottle IDs. On the bottle itself, there's a label, and it has, right now it starts with an A and it's 4 digits. So just put that in there. It's not the cooler ID, it's the bottle ID. When you receive your cooler box, open it up and check that there's no broken glassware or that you're not missing a sample bottle. You know, things do happen. And just make sure you have all the right parts. Always submit a dry week sample. So if it doesn't rain that week, still, you know, collect it, change out the glassware, and send us that bottle. We do need the bottle to kind of close things out. And like I said before, if we receive a cooler, we're going to ship a cooler. If we don't receive that cooler, we can't ship it. That was a change from the way things were previously done. But there were times where when we took over, talking to a site operator, and their equipment wasn't working, so they weren't putting the glassware out, but the old lab was continually sending every week, and they had about 12 coolers on site, and storage was an issue. So just keep that in mind. If for some reason there's something out of your control, recently, like during the holidays, I think with increased shipping, a lot of the USPS sites that ship back, some of them got delayed. So we did send out replacement coolers. And then once we got the other ones back, we just took them out of service. So again, reach out to us and we can help with your supplies. For AMON, again, complete all the blocks. The receiver initials is for the CAL use only. So the operator only puts their initials in this box. Again, same thing. When you receive that box, open it up and check. I get probably once every 2 weeks, every 2 deployments, I'll get a call that their sampler is broken. It's either the bottom's cap is fallen off, or the top white thread part has broken off. So again, just check it when you receive it. If it's damaged, call the 1-800 number. We'll get you a replacement. Travel blanks, you'll get about 5 per year. And when you get a travel blank, it just basically stays in the box. Don't open it, don't do anything, don't pass go, just leave it in the box. Duplicates, about 3 times a year. You'll get 3 to 4 times a year, you'll get a duplicate, and that's same thing, just put both of them up, deploy both samplers up at the same time. On your shelter, you have 4 posts, so you can accommodate the 2 samplers, and just put them up and take them down at the same time. So as far as complete your site conditions, and observations are done when you take the sample off. Okay. Going back to the supplies box, box 9, I think, for the NTN and MDN field forms. These are the things the CAL and the HAL will provide. So lid seal pads, packing tape, gloves in various sizes, address labels. These are just labels that have the CAL address on it. So it's not a UPS, FedEx, it's not a shipping label, it's just an address label. Dry sample envelopes, field forms, RO water, the site ID barcode labels, sample bottles, funnel or thistle if one was broken. If there's time, so if you receive a cooler with a broken funnel or thistle, and you also have one ready to go for that week, then the next one we send out, we'll just add an extra funnel or an extra thistle in the cooler rather than send it separately. For aerochems, we'll provide air filters for the enclosure. And we still have about, I think, 8 Belford sites left, and we still have some Charge ink and dashpot oil available. The plan is by the end of this year to hopefully have switched all of the Belfords over to new electronic gauges. So on your field forms, field observations are important. So if you are, if your sample is pink, or if your sample is bubbly, extra bubbly, write it on the form. Let us know what you're seeing at the site, and it helps down the road. This is an amon sampler with a wasp nest, frogs, and an ETI rain gauge. So we were getting false precip, mosquitoes in the thistle tube, and this is a photo taken by EEMS. It's one of my favorites. Just a bunch of cows hanging around the NTN collector. So again, record what you see at the sites. Going to site survey. So EPA has contracts out systems and performance audits, and it's done every 4 years, and it's funding dependent. Our current contractor is Environmental Engineering and Measurement Services. You've probably met one of the surveyors, either Eric, Martin, Corey, Allison, Sandy. Yeah. Basically, they go out, they assess the equipment, they review the operator procedures, they review siting criteria at the site. They'll provide operator refresher training if required or when required. And they also help the program office in equipment installations or repairs. So if you have them at your site, they're a good resource for any questions you have at the time. And usually they give you about a month's notice. You'll get a letter saying they're coming to your site. And again, another reason why it's important that we have updated email addresses and contact information, because we provide that to EMS so that they're contacting the correct people. So that brings me to future topics. And so some of the things, and I don't know, we can come up with topics, but if you guys have, topics that you want us to cover, I'm thinking rain gauge operation will probably be the next one. I just feel it's an important topic. But then after that, we could talk more about individual networks. So if you don't run an NTN MDN site and you're an AMON operator, then maybe, you probably don't want to sit through that one. But we can talk about data products. But again, it's open for discussion, and either during our Q&A, you can suggest topics, or you can reach out to me directly and provide input. We're looking at every other month. So the next one will be April. And again, Mondays work good for us in terms of at the program office. Not sure how it works for operators. Some of the stuff we just thought, it's good to have it on Monday, and then it's kind of fresh for Tuesday changes. But again, if you have strong feelings, let me know. But we will use Zoom, we will record it, and we will provide it for viewing later. Length, an hour is kind of what we've set it at. Again, we have every year we put out an annual summary of the network data. We put out a calendar, and we encourage you to submit photos for the calendar. If you did not receive the 2019 annual summary or the 2021 calendar, let me know. We'll get some out to you. One note on the calendar, there is an error with the AMON sampling dates starting in May going to September. So I will send out a reminder when we get to that point. And that brings us to questions and answers. Let me unshare.
Hi, I have a question if I can.
Sure.
My name is Ashley. I might have missed it, but the bottle ID, the A with the 4 digits, where would I find that?
That is,
Is it necessary to put in the MOF?
yeah, it is good to put it because it just gives us you know, it allows us to pair the sample with the moth.
Okay. And that would be like on the bottle itself.
It's on the bottle itself. There's a barcode label, and then there's the, you know, the safety information about the acid preservative. Below the barcode label it's like an A1234. I believe is that correct, Amy? Yeah.
Yep, that's correct.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say it's a larger. I know there's a lot of labels at work here as well, but the label that would contain that information, it's a larger label. It's like maybe 2 inches by 3 inches. It's right on the 1 liter MDN bottle. And yeah, like Richard said, there's a barcode, and then right below that barcode, there's the A1234 number, and then the safety information regarding the acid preservatives. So take a peek, and if you have any trouble finding it, just let us know. Shoot us an email or call the 1-800 number. We can help further.
We just double checked. I just found where it was. Thank you so much for that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good.
I do have another question.
Yep.
I do have 2 extra coolers, I think, with sample bottles. I think they've been there for a while. Would you like for me to ship those coolers back? Yes.
So with the MDM sample bottles, there's a acid preservative in it, and those should be used in a timely manner. It would be good for you to send those back, and then we can, was that one for each site for 95 and 97, or is it?
I think they're pretty old because I think it was before you guys were labeling them like you are now. And I do have like a bigger bottle set for, I think it was probably like wet season. And I do have a smaller set for dry season.
Okay. Yeah, if you could send those back to us, that would be great.
And if you wouldn't mind, it'll probably be fairly obvious to us, but if you could just, include a note or something in there, or even write on, if there's a field form in there, just say, unused supplies, something like that. That'll just make it crystal clear to us what's going on there.
Of course. Yeah, that's not a problem. I'll send them tomorrow, 2 extra shipments with the samples for tomorrow. Which leads me to my last question. I'm so sorry. At our FL97 site, we have the Bluetooth socket. And I was wondering, I heard you guys saying that you guys were upgrading those. I tend to have a lot of trouble getting that site to communicate with the rain gauge. I don't know if it's the Bluetooth socket, but if there's any way we can upgrade that, that would be really great.
Yeah, is 97, you're a solar site, correct?
I believe so. Yeah, we use solar.
Yeah, so we can try it. One of the things we have found is with some of the solar sites, depending on how good your power is, the socket does work better just because it's a 5-volt requirement as opposed to a 12-volt for the Pirani. But
Okay, yeah, no, if it's supposed to work better, I'm willing to keep it. I was just wondering out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
well, I can reach out to you and we can talk about it more.
Okay, thank you. That was my final question. Thank you, guys.
All right. Anybody else right off the bat?
Hey, this is Phil calling or speaking from Beltsville, Maryland, MD99. I have 3 questions as well, actually. There was talk about returning the bags for recycling for NTN samples. Is that happening, or is that something that we should take care of ourselves, try to find a recycling center or just find a second use for them?
You can try and find something local or another use, or
Okay.
you can send them back in your lid bags, and we'll take care of it at our end.
Excellent. And then as for the Amon sampler not attached to the coupler, if it's just unthreaded, is that something we can glove up and reattach, or would you like us to request a secondary sample sent out?
No, if it is just the coupler detached, yes, you can. If you wear gloves, just screw it back on.
Okay.
And just make a note on the field form that it.
Okay, perfect. That's what we've been doing.
Yep.
And then I guess the last one, is there a way to attach photos to our forms, our field forms for MDN or NTN? Should we see something like pink collection or frogs or whatnot, or just email those separately as needed?
You can just email separately with to the network email
site
address.
specific one. Okay, perfect. Yep. Great. Thank you very much for putting this together again.
No problem. There's been a couple of comments in the chat. Amanda Young from AK96. Okay, yeah, you can send your NTN and MDN back together. Jim Renfro from TN11. Topic for April would be bag sampling procedures. Yeah, we can do a more in-depth bag sampling training for sure. We are slowly getting the videos up on the website, but yeah, I think it would warrant a full session. Amanda, we cannot ship immediately. Yes, if you have an NTN sample that can't be shipped immediately, if you have a fridge it can go in, that would be the best. If you don't have to put the whole cooler in the fridge, unless you have the space and you're worried about it getting lost. But otherwise, just the NTN and Amon. If you can't ship Amon back right away, that also can go in the fridge. Marta from MA01. For NTN, my rain gauge depth and my sample depth are often not within the 5%. So collection efficiency between the bucket and the rain gauge will often vary depending on the time of year. With snow events, it doesn't do a good job of collecting in the rain gauge. We have heard from operators that with the new bag sampling, they feel that they're not catching everything in the bag now. So it's something, yeah, if it's continuously, and it depends on which is over reporting or under reporting. But again, Marta, we can talk offline on that one. Okay. And Nikki at Indiana 41, same problem. Okay, we can talk. And then we have both NTN and MDN sites at MA01, and collectors are not usually open for the same number of hours. Maybe this contributes to the, and that's quite possible. you have to note that between the MDN and the NTN aerochem collectors, one uses an 11 grid sensor, one uses a 7 grid sensor. So your MDN may be open longer or sooner than the NTN, and that will contribute to the difference in sample hours. Alex, VT99, our NTN samples have been leaking too regularly. We didn't know what we could send these back with MDN. We'll start doing that, which hopefully help do the freezing temperatures and or yeah, I guess Amy, do you have any thoughts on leaking samples?
Well, yeah, you kind of hit the major one there is the over tightening. That can actually cause them to leak. So it sounds like you're being conscientious about that. I guess it's possible with the freezing, but I don't think there'd be enough, time for sort of like a freeze thaw cycle that would cause some expansion and contraction that would make it happen. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I would suggest start sending it back with your MDN. That could definitely help because that bottle will be more, stable in the cooler and not getting banged around so much. You could maybe in your, the NTN 1 liter box, you could try putting some bubble wrap around the bottle. There's a little bit of space in there. You could try to cushion that a little bit and see if that helps.
Okay. And
Hopefully
I
that
see,
helps.
Bonnie, I'm going to get to you in 1 second. I'm just going to answer this last question on the chat. What type of file would you like the rain gauge data as? .text, .dat, .csv. The preferred format is .dat. And if it doesn't upload to the online NADP form, can we email it to the? Yes, definitely. Sometimes that attaching it and doing it through the web upload does have some problems. So if you do send it by email, by all means, you can do that. And just for everybody, when you, especially with the new Androids, if you rename the file, always remember to add the .dat file extension. Because when you email it to the NADP-precip email address, if it doesn't have that correct file extension, it will not get ingested and show up on the website. So if you've tried a couple of times and it's still not there, check your file extension name. Otherwise, someone has to go in and manually correct that and put it up there. Bonnie, you've had your hand up for a while. Still there, Bonnie?
Okay,
Oh.
yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the unmute. I was hitting the microphone. My question is, in Southern California, we only occasionally get snowstorms, winter that cold. And then by the time I get up to the rain gauge in the bucket, the snow might have melted. So how do I know if it was rain or snow or mixed? Just by if it got to 0 degrees, can you explain that?
That's more of a, I think, I'm going to say it's more of a qualitative observation in terms of, depending on where your site is. And like you said, it's not in your backyard. So you can only best guess what it is. And in your case, in that example, yeah, if the forecast was snow and it's snow on the drive up, then it's probably snow, but you could also circle mixed for that.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought. Go by my best judgment and the temperature. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So I hope this has been helpful. Like I said, this is new for us, and hopefully we can get better at the information we can provide you. I'm not sure whether I went too much into the background, but I thought it was a good starting point for, especially if you are a new operator and haven't had time to, browse through our website. So if you have no other questions or comments, all I'll say is, again, yeah, if you're new and you're not sure whether we have your information, if you got this email invite from a colleague, then please reach out to us and send us your information. Let us know what site you service, and we'll get your information recorded, and we can send you more information
Right behind
as a
you.
new operator. So
I'll see you.
we have one more comment in the, how do you access the online data? Are you referring to the precept data or the actual final data? If it's precept data, MDN final data, that is available on the website, and I can do a quick screens. Okay, are we seeing the website now?
Yep.
Okay, so under maps and data, you select your network you want, and then you can select by your site. Keep in mind, the sites at the top are the active sites, and then at some point, it starts listing all of the inactive sites. So make sure you're on the right. Sometimes people will scroll down and they'll go, I can't find Wisconsin 06, but just make sure that you're in the active section. So if you were, if we were looking at Wisconsin 06, and then we go to data and we look at the weekly data, and then there's a CSV file for the most recent data. So I hope that answers your question. Well, thank you for joining us. And yeah, any feedback you have on topics, on days of the week that work better, we can definitely try and move things around from session to session. And again, like I said, if you have information or contact information, pass it along, and we'll update our records and help you out. We're here to help. So 1-800-952-7353. Thank you.